Hello, my name is Kevin and you're watching Learning Old Germanic Languages. In this video, we will talk about why does Old Frisian look similar to Old English. Just to recap, Old English and Old Frisian both come from something called Anglo Frisian. Okay? So that suggests that there was a common ancestor between Old English and Old Frisian. So to go over some examples of similarities, but when we say Anglo Frisian, just to go in that term, because thing is, we know the term Anglo-Saxon, so we got the Anglo part, and that specifically goes with the Angles. They were a Germanic tribe that lived in northern Germany, southern Denmark, and in a district called Anglian, today called Anglian. And thing is, these people were related to very much to the Frisians, and I'll go into why. But thing is, with Anglo Frisian, so in relation to Old English, this really mainly has to do with the Anglian dialects of Old English. Okay, so for example, a common word between Old Frisian and Anglian Old English, if you will, is the word feder, and that's father, both in Anglian Old English, particularly Northumbrian to be specific, and Old Frisian. They're both feder. So that would suggest, because we have this word in this form, that suggests that, okay, there's a similarity. Another example is the word sleep. The word sleep in Anglian is sleep. Same thing in Old Frisian. So, there are a lot of little similarities and whatnot. And further, what I find really interesting about specifically the Northumbrian dialect of Old English, Anglian, and Old Frisian is that with the verbs in the Northumbrian dialect of Old English, that there's no final N. Like, for example, if you were to say, I don't know, let's say what normally would be atan would be ata. So there's no final N. The same thing with Old Frisian, with the infinitive verbs. There's no final N. And where else do you see that? In Old Norse. So that suggests that with the Angles, the early Angles, they were Scandinavian. And just a little tangent is that thing is with the Anglian dialects of Old English, the words like are, as in we are, you are, thou art, and all that art and all that. Art is a later invention, but it was one form of it. A few forms of it was around during the Old English period. But yeah, that part of to be was around before the Vikings. So that suggests that the Angles the early Angles were Scandinavian. Anyway, that aside, according to an article recently published regarding the Angles and Jutes, they were in Friesland. So they were the people that came into, because thing is, at one point in Frisia's history, that it was like there were no people there, and the people that came to Friesland and became what we know now as the Frisians were the Jutes and the Angles. So that's why there are a lot of similarities between Old English, Anglian Old English, and Old Frisian. Even today with the dialects of like Saterland Frisian and whatnot, and English today. Give you one cool example. The word for two, as in the number two, in Saterland Frisian is tvo. And it looks like the number two in English, but you just pronounce it a little differently. So there's some more modern evidence that show that there's a grand connection between the early Angles and the Frisians, Uto Angles or Juto Angles, if you will. There's a lot of similarities. Another similarity is that, sure, in English today we have Wednesday. In Old Frisian, the word for Wednesday is, there's two forms of it. There's Wednesday. There's also, Wednesday or Wednesday, and with Old English, we have Wodnes, and I would suggest, I would also think that because we have the word today Wednesday, and there are a lot of place names like Wensley, that would show that, you know, the Anglian connection between you know, the Angles in England and the Angles that, well, I mean, what became the Frisians essentially. I mean, Angles I would like to call it, because those Jutes that went there too. So yeah, that's something to bear in mind. I mean, there are a lot of similarities and whatnot, and you know, so yeah, that's basically it. Well, as far as where you know, the study, this article that you know, where it's confirmed that, you know, it was well, I like to call them Juto-Angles or Uto-Angles, the Jutes and Angles, they were in Friesland, is an article down below. I will link down below. Though it's in Dutch though. You're gonna have to use a Google Translate, or if you happen to know Dutch, great. Yeah, so let me know what you think down below regarding this, because yeah, it goes to show that, you know, the Angles and the Frisians, there is much more in common, you know, than most people think. You know, so so anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe if you're new, and again, thanks for watching. This is Kevin, and you're watching Learning Old Germanic Languages. Take care.